There it was again. The sound of someone rattling the knocker on my front door. I gave an involuntary exclamation of annoyance. This was the fourth interruption this evening. How was the man expected to work? There was no sign of Karthik either. He had left for the market a long time ago. So I was forced to leave my desk and open the door myself. It took me a while to recognize the man who was standing outside. When I did, I felt profoundly startled. Why? It was Kanti Babu. What a surprise! Do come in, I said. So you have recognized me? Yes, but it wasn't easy. I showed him into the living room and offered him a seat. I had not seen him in 10 years. His appearance had undergone a remarkable change in that time. In 1950, I had seen the same man in a forest in Assam, jumping around with a magnifying glass in his hand. He was nearly 50 then, but all his hair was still black. He bubbled all the time with energy and endless enthusiasm. Such vitality would be hard to find even among the young. Are you still interested in orchid? Kanti Babu asked. Actually, there was an orchid in a pot resting on my windowsill. It was in fact a gift from Kanti Babu himself. I wasn't really interested in plants anymore. It was Kanti Babu who had once aroused my curiosity about them. But after he went abroad, I had lost my interest gradually. There were other hobbies and interests too, but I had given them up as well. Now my only passion was writing. Things had changed over the years. Now it was possible to make money just by writing. To tell the truth, my last 3 books had brought me an income that was almost wholly sufficient to meet my household expenses. Not that I had a big house to run. There was only my widowed mother to take care of and my servant, Karthik. I still had a job, but was hoping to give it up if my writing continued to bring me success. I would write full time, and when I could take a break, I would travel. That was my plan. Suddenly, Kanti Babu shivered. "Are you feeling cold? Shall I close the window?" "The winter in Calcutta this year," I began. No. You saw me shiver, huh? It happens sometimes. I'm getting old, you see. So my nerves are no longer... I wanted to ask a lot of questions. Karthik had returned, so I asked him to bring us tea. "I won't take up a lot of your time," Kanti Babu said. "I came across one of your novels recently, so I got in touch with your publisher, took your address, and well, here I am. There is a special reason why I had to see you." "Yes, tell me about it. But before you do, there's so much I want to know. When did you return? Where were you all these years? And where are you now?" "I returned 2 years ago. Before that, I was in America. Now I live in Barashat." "Barashat?" "Yeah. I bought a house there." "Does it have a garden?" "Yes." "And a greenhouse?" In the house that I had visited before, Kanti Babu had a lovely greenhouse in which he tended with great care several of his rare plants. I had seen such a large number of strange and weird plants there. Of orchids alone, he had more than 60 varieties. One could easily pass a whole day just looking at and enjoying their different colors and other characteristics. Kanti Babu paused for a second before saying, "Yes, there is a greenhouse." "So you're still as mad about plants as you were 10 years ago?" "Yes." Kanti Babu was staring at the opposite wall. Automatically, I followed his gaze. The wall was covered by a skin of a Royal Bengal tiger, including the head. Does it seem familiar to you? I asked. Is that the same tiger? Yes. See that hole close to its left ear? That's where the bullet passed through. You were a remarkable shot. Can you still shoot with such perfect accuracy? I don't know. I haven't used my gun for a long time. I gave up shikar more than 5 years ago. Why? Well, I had enough. I had killed enough animals. After all, I'm not getting any younger, you see. It was time to stop destroying wildlife. Really? So you have stopped eating meat? Are you now a vegetarian? No, I'm not. Why not? Killing a wild animal is just plain killing. Say you destroy a tiger or a crocodile or a bison, and then you hang its head or its horns on your wall. What happens? Your room acquires a special air. Some of your visitors are horrified, others are impressed, and you can relive the moments of your youthful adventures. That's all. But think of the chicken, goats, and fishes. You are not just killing, but also eating every day. It's more than mere destruction, isn't it? Why? Why, it's the digestion of a living creature. There was really nothing I could say in reply, so I remained silent. Karthik brought us tea. Kanti Babu remained lost in thought for a few moments, then suddenly shivered again and picked up his cup. It isn't unusual for one particular animal to eat another. Nature made things that way. See that gecko lying in wait over there? He asked. Over a calendar on the wall sprawled a gecko, starting unblinkingly in an insect, just a couple of inches away from its mouth. Then it moved slowly, ever so slowly, before springing forward in one leap and swallowing its prey. There, exclaimed Kanti Babu. That takes care of his dinner, Eating is all most creatures are concerned with. Just think about it. A tiger would eat a man would eat a goat, and a goat would eat anything. Doesn't it all seem terribly wild, primitive, and violent? Yet that is how nature wills it. Stop this cycle, and the whole natural order would be thrown out of gear. Perhaps being a vegetarian is more civilized? Who told you that? You think leaves and vegetables and plants are lifeless? Do they not live? Yes, of course, they do. Thanks to Jagdish Bose and you, I can never forget about the life of plants. But it's different, isn't it? Animals and plants are not the same, surely. Oh, you think there are a lot of differences between the two, Aren't there? A tree cannot move, walk, or make noise, express thoughts or feelings. In fact, there is no way to find out if a tree has a mind at all. Isn't that true? Kanti Babu opened his mouth to speak, then shut it without saying a word. Silently, he finished his tea and sat with his head bowed. Eventually, when he looked up and met my eyes, I suddenly felt afraid to see the look of tragic uncertainty in it. Truly, the change in the man was extraordinary. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. Parimal, he said, I live 21 miles away, and I am 58 years old. But despite my age and long distance I had to travel, I took the trouble to get your address and visit you here. Surely, I don't need to tell you now that there is a very important reason behind my visit. You can say that, can't you? Or have you lost all your intelligence in trying to produce popular fiction? Are you looking at me right now and thinking, here is a new type, I can use him in a story? Well, I had to look away and flushing with embarrassment. Kanti Babu was right. The thought of using him as a character had indeed occurred to me. Remember this, he went on. If you lose touch with the realities of life, whatever you write will simply be lies, empty and hollow. Besides, no matter how lively your imagination is, What emerges from it can never match the surprises real life can come up with. Anyways, I didn't come here to give you a lecture. I came to tell you the truth, to ask a favor. Kanti Babu glanced at the tiger again. What favor was he talking about? Do you still have your gun, or did you get rid of it? I gave a slight start and glanced quickly at him. Why did he mention my gun? No, I still have it. But it will maybe rusted. Why do you ask? Can you come to my house tomorrow with your gun? I scanned his face. No, there was not even the slightest sign to imply that he might be joking. Of course, he added, you will need bullets too. The gun alone won't be good enough. I could not immediately think of anything to say in reply to Kanti Babu's request. It even occurred to me once that perhaps he had gone mad. Although one could not be sure, he was certainly given to crazy whims. Or else why should he have risked his life in a jungle to look for rare plants? I can easily take my gun. There is no problem, I said finally. But I'm dying to know the reason why it might be needed. Is there an animal bothering the residents in your area? Or perhaps there are burglars or thieves? I will explain everything once you get there. Who knows? We might not even have to use the gun. But even if you do, I can assure you that you will not be arrested. Kanti Babu rose to his feet. Then he came closer and laid a hand to my shoulder. I came to you because when I last saw you, you had struck me as a man who would welcome a new experience, very much like myself. Besides, I don't know many other people. The number of people I actually visited was always small, and now I see virtually no one. The handful of people I could think of contacting are all very different, you see. None of them has the special qualities that you have. Just for a minute, I could feel in the sudden tightening of my muscles the same thrill that the mere mention of an adventure used to bring all those years ago. When would you like me to get there? How would I find your house? I asked. I'll tell you. Just go straight down Joshua Road until you get the railway station in Barashat. Then you need to find a lake called Mudhumurali Dikhi. It's another 4 miles from the station. Anyone there will tell you where it is. Next to the lake is an old and abandoned indigo factory. My house is right behind it. Do you have a car? No, but a friend of mine has. Who's that friend? His name is Abhijit. He and I were in college together. What kind of a man is he? Do I know him? No, I don't think so, but he's a good man. I mean, if you are wondering whether he's reliable, I can tell you that he is totally. Very well then. You may bring him with you, but please make sure that you reach my house before evening. It's important. Needless to say. Karthik Babu left. Since I did not have a telephone at home, I went to our local chemist just across the road to ring Abhijit. Come to my house at once, I said to him. I've got something urgent to discuss. Urgent? You mean you have got a new story? You'd like to read me out? I'll go to sleep again, let me tell you. No, it's not about a story. Something quite different. What is it? Why are you speaking so softly? I've come to know about a pup, Mastiff. The man selling it is sitting in my house right now. I knew Abhijit would not stir out of his house unless I could lure him out by talking of dogs. He had 11 dogs. Each one of them belonged to a different species. 3 of those dogs had won prizes. Even 5 years ago, things were different. But now, Abhijit thought and dreamt of nothing but dogs. Apart from his love of dogs, there was something else that made him very special. Abhijit had unflinching faith in my talent and judgment. When my first novel was turned down by publishers, it was Abhijit who provided the money to publish it privately. Mind you, he told me, I know nothing of books and literature, but if you have written this book, it cannot possibly be absolute garbage. The publishers are completely idiot. As it happened, things turned out quite well. The book was well received and sold a large number of copies. As a result, Abhijit's faith in me grew stronger. He turned up soon enough and gave me a painful punch when he discovered that I had lied about the pup. However, seeing his enthusiasm regarding the real reason for calling him out, I soon forgot the pain. We haven't had an outing for a long time, have we? Abhijit said eagerly. The last time was when we went snipe shooting in Sonarpur. But who's this man? What's it all about? Why don't you come clean, my friend? How can I when he told me nothing? Besides, a little mystery is a good thing, you see. I like it. It should give us the chance to use our imagination, Alright then. But who is this man? What does he do? His name is Kanti Charan Chatterjee. Does that mean anything to you? He was once a professor of botany, used to teach in Scottish Church College. Then he gave up his job and began looking for rare plants in jungles and forests. Sometimes he wrote about them. He had a wonderful collection of plants, particularly of orchids. How did you get to meet him? Well, I met him in a forest bungalow in Assam. I was there to hunt down a tiger. He was hunting everywhere for a nepenthes. Hunting for what? Nepenthes. It's a botanical name for what is commonly called a pitcher plant. You can get it in the forest of Assam. It eats insects. I did not see it myself, but Kanti Babu told me about it. Eat insects. A plant. It chomps on insects. You did not ever study botany, did you? No. I've seen pictures of this plant. There's no reason to sound so skeptical. It exists, okay? Okay. So, what happened next? Very little. I finished my shikar and came away. Kanti Babu stayed on. I have no idea whether he found that plant or not. What I was afraid of was that he might be killed by a wild animal or bitten by a snake. When he set off to look for a plant, he thought of nothing else, not even of the dangers in a forest. After coming back to Calcutta, I met him only a couple of times. But I thought of him often, because for a time I developed quite a passion for orchids. Kanti Babu offered to bring me some good quality orchids from America. America? This man went to America. Yes, one of his articles was published in an English botanical journal. It made him quite well known in those circles. Then he was invited to a conference of botanists in America. That was in 1951. Or was it 52? Well, that's when I last saw him, okay? Was he there all this while? What was he doing? No idea. Hopefully he'll tell us tomorrow. Is not? I mean, is he perhaps a little eccentric? Not any more than you. I can tell you that much. You fill your life with dogs, he fills his with plants. We were now going down Joshua Road in the direction of Barashat, traveling in Abhijit's Standard. There was a third passenger in the car. It was Abhijit's dog, Badsha. It was my own fault, really. I should have known that. Unless otherwise instructed Abhijit, Abhijit was bound to bring one of his 11 dogs. Badsha was a Rampur hound, a ferocious animal. He had spread himself out on the back seat as its sole occupant, looking out of the window at the wide open rice fields. Each time a stray dog from a local village came into view, Badsha gave a mild, contemptuous growl. When I saw Abhijit arrived with Badsha, I tried to put up a faint protest. At this, Abhijit said, "I don't have a great deal of faith on your skills, you see. That's why I brought him alone. You haven't handled your gun for years. Should there be a trouble, Badsha would probably be of far more use than you. He has an extraordinary sense of smell and is quite fearless. Kanti Babu's house was not difficult to find. By the time we got there, it was 2:30. A driveway led to the house, which was built in the style of a bungalow. Behind the house was an open space. A huge old shirish tree stood where this space ended. By its side was a structure with a tin roof. It looked like a small factory. In front of the house was a garden, at the end of which a long area was covered by another tin roof. A number of shining glass cases stood there in a row. Kanti Babu came out to greet us, then frowned slightly as he saw Badsha. "Is he a trained dog?" he asked. "He listened to everything I say," Abhijit told him. "But if there is an untrained dog in the vicinity and Badsha sees him, well, I couldn't tell you what he might do then. Is there such a dog?" "No, but for the moment, please tie your dog to one of the bars on that window." Abhijit gave me a sidelong glance, winked and did as he was told, like an obedient child. Badsha protested a couple of times, but did not seem to mind too much. We sat on cane chairs on the front veranda. My servant Proyag injured his right hand, so I made tea for you and put it in a flask. Let me know when you'd like some. It was a very quiet and peaceful place. I could hear nothing but a few chirping birds. How could there be serious danger lurking somewhere in a place like this? I felt a little foolish, sitting with the gun in my hands, so I propped it up against a wall. Abhijit could never sit still. He was very much a city man. The beauties of nature offered by the countryside, the leaves on a peepal tree, trembling in a slight breeze, or the call of an unknown bird, did nothing to move him. He looked around, shifted restlessly, and suddenly blurted out, "Porimal told me that you once went to a forest in Assam looking for some weird plant and nearly got gobbled up by a tiger. Is that true?" This was something else Abhijit was wont to do. He could not speak without exaggerating everything. I felt afraid Kanti Babu might be offended, but he just laughed and said, "Do you always think of a tiger whenever you think of danger? But that's not surprising. Many people would do that." "No, I never came across a tiger. Leeches in the forest caused me some discomfort, but that was nothing serious either." "Did you find that plant?" The same question had occurred to me too. "Which plant?" "Oh, that what? No, a pitcher plant or something." "Oh yes, Nepenthes. Yes, I did find it, and in fact, have still got it. I'll show it to you. I'm no longer interested in ordinary plants. Now I restrict myself only to carnivorous ones. I've got rid of most of my orchids too." Kanti Babu rose and went indoors. Abhijit and I exchanged glances. Carnivorous plants. Plants that ate meat. A few pages and pictures I had studied 15 years ago in a book on botany dimly wafted before my eyes. When Kanti Babu re-emerged, there was a bottle in his hand. It contained house crickets and a few other insects still alive. The stopper on the bottle, I noticed, had tiny holes, like those on a pepper shaker. "Fading time," said Kanti Babu with a smile. "Come with me." We followed Kanti Babu out to the long stripe on the ground at the back of his garden, which contained the glass cases. Each of the cases held a different plant. I had seen none of them before, except for Nepenthes. Kanti Babu told us, "Not a single one of them is from our country. One of them is from Nepal, another from Africa. The rest are virtually all from Central America." "If that is so," Abhijit asked, "how do they survive here? I mean, does the soil here have—" "No, these plants have nothing to do with the soil." "No?" "No, they do not derive sustenance from the soil. Just as human beings can survive anywhere in the world as long as they are fed properly, so can these plants. Adequate and appropriate food is all they need, no matter where they are kept." Kanti Babu stopped before a glass case. In it was an extraordinary plant. Its leaves were about 2 inches long. Their edges were wide and were serrated, as if they had teeth. The front of the case had a kind of door, though it was big enough only for the mouth of the bottle to go through. It was bolted from outside. Kanti Babu unbolted it. Then he removed the stopper from the bottle and quickly slipped the bottle through the door. A house cricket leaped out into the case. Kanti Babu removed the bottle and replaced the stopper. Then he pushed the bowl back into place. The house cricket moved restlessly for a few seconds. Then it went and sat on a leaf. At once the leaf folded itself and caught the insect. To my complete amazement, I saw that the 2 sets of teeth had closed it and clamped on each other so tightly that the poor house cricket had no chance of escaping. I had no idea that nature could set such a strange, horrific trap. Certainly, I had never seen anything like it before. Abhijit was the first to speak. "Is there any guarantee," he asked hoarsely, "that the insect would sit on a leaf?" "Of course. The plant exudes a smell that attracts insects. This plant is called the Venus flytrap. I brought it from Central America. If you go through books on botany, you may find pictures of this plant." I was still staring in speechless amazement at the house cricket. At first, it was struggling to get out, but now it was just lying in its trap, quite lifeless. The pressure from the leaf's teeth appeared to be getting stronger. This plant was every bit as violent as a gecko. Abhijit laughed dryly. "If I could keep such a plant in my house, I'd be safe from insects. At least I wouldn't have to use DDT to kill cockroaches." No, this particular plant couldn't eat and digest a cockroach. Its leaves are too small. There's a different plant to deal with cockroaches. Come this way," invited Kanti Babu. The next glass case had a plant whose long, large leaves looked like those of a lily. Each leaf had a strange object hanging from its tip. It looked like a pitcher-shaped bag, complete with a lid. I had already seen its picture. It was not difficult to recognize it. "This," Kanti Babu declared, "is Nepenthes, or a pitcher plant. It requires bigger creatures to survive. When I first found it, there were the crushed remains of a small bird in one of those pitchers." "Oh my God!" Abhijit exclaimed. The faint contempt of his tone had held earlier was quickly disappearing. "What does it eat now?" "Cockroaches, caterpillars, even butterflies. Once I found a rat in my rat trap. I fed it to that plant. It didn't seem to mind. But sometimes these plants eat more than they can digest, and then they die. They're a greedy lot. There are times when they just can't figure out how much strain their own digestive system can bear." We move on to look at other plants, our astonishment mounting higher. There were butterwort, sundew, bladderwort, arausia, plants whose pictures I had seen, but the others were totally new, completely astounding, perfectly incredible. Kanti Babu had collected at least 20 different species of carnivorous plants, some of which, he said, were not included in any other collections in the world. The prettiest among these was the sundew. It had the fine strands of hairs around its leaves. A droplet glistened on the tip of each hair. Kanti Babu tied a tiny piece of meat, no bigger than a peppercorn, to the thread and took it close to the leaf. We could see, even from a distance, all the hair rise at once, grasping at the piece of the meat greedily. But Kanti Babu removed his hand before the meat could be taken. If it did get that piece of meat, it would have crushed it, just like the fly trap. Then it would have absorbed whatever nourishment it could get and rejected the chewed pulp. Not really that different from the way you and I eat meat, isn't it? We left the shed and came out to the garden. The Shirish tree was casting a long shadow. I looked at my watch. It was 4:30. You will find mention of most of these plants in your book, said Kanti Babu, but no one knows about the one I'm going to show you now. It will never get written about, unless I write about it myself. In fact, I called you over here really to show you this plant. Come, Purimal, come with me, Abhijit Babu. This time, Kanti Babu led the way to what looked like a factory behind the Shirish tree. The door, made of tin, was locked. There was a window on either side. Kanti Babu pushed one of these open, peered in, then withdrew. Have a look, he said. Abhijit and I placed ourselves at the window. The room was only partially lit by the sunlight that came in through 2 skylights set high on the opposite wall. The object the room contained hardly looked like a plant or a tree. As a matter of fact, it was more like a weird animal, one with large, thick tentacles. A closer look, however, did reveal a trunk. It rose from the ground by several feet to end at what might be described as a head. About 18 inches below his head, surrounding it were tentacles. I counted them. There were 7. The bark of the tree was pale, but it had round brown marks all over. The tentacles were hanging limply, resting on the ground. The whole object appeared lifeless, yet I could feel my flesh creep. I noticed something else as my eyes got used to the dark. The floor around the plant was littered with the feathers of some bird. Neither Abhijit nor I could speak. How long the silence continued, I cannot tell. It was Kanti Babu's voice that broke it. The plant is asleep at this moment. It's almost time for it to wake up. Is it really a plant? Abhijit asked incredulously. Well, it has grown out of the ground. What else would I call it? It doesn't, however, behave like a plant. No botanical reference book or encyclopedia could give you a suitable name for it. What do you call it? Septopus. Because it has 7 tentacles. We began walking back to the house. Where did you find it? I asked. There is a dense forest near Lake Nicaragua in Central America. That's where I found it. You must have had to search the area pretty thoroughly. Yes, but I knew that the plant was available there. You haven't heard about Professor Dunstan, have you? He was a botanist and an explorer. He died in Central America looking for rare plants, but his death was quite mysterious. No one ever found his body. No one knows exactly how he died. This particular plant was mentioned in his diary towards the very end, so I went to Nicaragua at the first opportunity. When I got to Guatemala, I heard people talking about this plant. They call it the Satan's tree. Eventually, I saw a number of these plants. I saw them eat monkeys, armadillos, and other animals. Then, after many days of careful searching, I found a small sapling and brought it with me. You can see how big it has grown in 2 years. What does it eat here? Whatever I give it. Sometimes I catch rats in my trap to feed it. Proag has been told to get hold of dogs and cats that get run over. It has eaten those too. Sometimes I give it the same things that you and I would eat, chicken or goat. Recently, its appetite seems to have grown quite a lot. I can't keep up with it. When it wakes up in the evening, it gets really restless. Yesterday, something happened. It was just terrible. Proag had gone to feed it a chicken. It has to be fed in much the same way as an elephant. The head of this plant has a kind of lid. First of all, it opens its lid. Then it grabs the food with one of its tentacles, as an elephant picks up its food with its trunk, and places it into the opening in the head. After that, it remains quiet for a while. When it starts swinging its tentacles, that means it wants to eat some more. So far, a couple of chicken or a lamb was proving to be quite sufficient for a day's meal. Things have changed since yesterday. Proag, the second chicken, shut the door and came away. When the plant gets restless, it strikes its tentacles against the floor, which creates a noise. Proyag heard this noise even after the second chicken had disappeared. So he went back to investigate. I was in my room at that time, making entries in my diary. A sudden scream made me come running here to see what was going on. What I saw was horrible. The plant had grabbed Proyag's right hand with a tentacle. Proyag was trying desperately to free his hand, but another tentacle was raised and making its way to him. I had to pick up my stick and strike at the tentacle with all my might, and then put both my arms around Proyag to pull him back. Yes, I rescued him all right, but what I saw the plant do next left me feeling positively alarmed. It had managed to tear off a piece of flesh from Proyag's hand. I saw it remove the lid on its head and put it in. I saw it with my own eyes. We had reached the front veranda once again. Kanti Babu sat down on a chair. Then he took out a handkerchief and wiped his forehead. I had no idea that the septopus would wish to attack a human being. But now, since there has been such an indication, I don't have any option. I've got to kill it. I decided to do so immediately after I saw Proyag being attacked, and I put poison in its food. But that plant has such amazing intelligence. It picked the food up with the tentacle, but threw it away instantly. Now the only thing I can do is to shoot it. Purimal, now do you understand why I called you here? I remained quiet for a few moments. Then I said, do you know for sure that it will die if it's shot? No, I cannot be sure. But I do believe that it has a brain. Besides, I have proof that it can think and judge. I've gone near it so many times. It has never attacked me. It seems to know me well, just as a dog knows its master. It dislikes Proyag because sometimes Proyag has in the past teased it and played tricks on it. He had tempted it with food, then refused to feed it. I have seen Proyag take its food close to its tentacles and threw it before the plant could grasp it. Yes, it most definitely has a brain, and that is where it should be, in its head. You must aim and fire at the spot from which those tentacles have grown. This time, Abhijit spoke. That's not a problem, he said casually. It will only take a minute. Porimal, get your gun. Kanti Babu raised a hand to stop Abhijit. If the prey is asleep, is it right to kill it? What does your hunting code say, Porimal? Well, it is quite unethical to kill a sleeping animal. In this case, the prey is incapable of running away. There is no question of killing it until it wakes up. Kanti Babu rose and poured tea out of a flask. The septopus woke within 15 minutes of our finishing the tea. Badsha in the living room had grown increasingly restive while we were talking. The sound of his keening and scratching noise made both Abhijit and me jump up and go inside. We found Badsha straining at his leash and trying to bite its collar. Abhijit began to calm him down, but at that moment we heard a swishing noise coming from the factory. It was accompanied by a sharp, pungent smell. It is difficult to describe it. When I was a child, I had had my tonsils removed. Before the operation, I had smelled chloroform. It was somewhat similar. Kanti Babu swept into the living room. Come on, it's time, he said. What is that smell? It's coming from the septopus. That's the smell it spreads to attract any. Kanti Babu could not finish. Badsha broke free with a mighty pull at the leash, knocked Abhijit out of the way and leapt in the direction of the factory to look for the source of the smell. Oh God, no, cried Abhijit, picking himself up and running after his dog. I picked up my loaded gun and followed him quickly. When I got there, only a few seconds later, Badsha was springing up to the open window, ignoring Abhijit's futile attempts to stop him. Then he jumped into the room. Kanti Babu ran to unlock the door. We heard the agonized screams of the Rampur hound, even as Kanti Babu turned the key in the lock. We tumbled into the room to witness a horrible sight. One tentacle was not enough this time. The septopus was wrapping a second. and then a third tentacle around Badsha in a deadly embrace. Kanti Babu shouted, "Don't get any closer, either of you. Porimal, fire." I raised my gun, but another voice yelled, "Stop!" Now I realized how precious his dog was to Abhijit. He paid no attention to Kanti Babu's warning. I saw him run to the plant and clutch with both hands one of the 3 tentacles that were wrapped around Badsha. What followed froze my blood. All 3 tentacles left Badsha immediately and attacked Abhijit, and the remaining 4, perhaps aroused by the prospect of tasting human blood, rose from the ground, swaying greedily. Kanti Babu spoke again. "Come on, shoot. Look, there's the head." A lid from the top of the head was being slowly removed, revealing a dark cavern. The tentacles, lifting and carrying Abhijit with them, were moving towards that yawning gap. Abhijit's face looked deadly pale. His eyes were bursting out of their sockets. At any moment of crisis, I had noticed before, my nerves would become perfectly steady and calm, as if by magic. I raised my gun, took aim and fired at the head of the septopus, between 2 brown circular marks in the center. My hands did not tremble, and my bullet found its mark. In the next instant, I remember thick red blood began spurting out of that wounded plant, gushing forth like a fountain. And the tentacles released Abhijit, hanging low, dropping down to the ground, still and lifeless. The last thing I remember is the smell, which suddenly grew 10 times stronger, overwhelming my senses, blocking out consciousness, numbing my thoughts. 4 months had passed since that day. I had only recently resumed writing. My novel was still incomplete. It had proved impossible to save Badsha. But Abhijit had already found a mastiff and a Tibetan pup. Now he was looking for another Rampur hound. I had learned 2 of his ribs were fractured as a result of his encounter with the septopus. It took him 2 months to recover. Kanti Babu visited me yesterday. He was thinking of getting rid of all his plants that eat insects. He said, "It might be a good idea to experiment with vegetables, don't you think?" I mean, I could grow courgettes, gourds, marrows, things like that. If you like, I can give you some of my old plants. You did so much for me. I'm very grateful to you. Say, I give you an Nepenthes. It can at least take care of the insects in your house. No, I interrupted him. If you wish to get rid of those plants too, just throw them out. I don't need a plant to catch my insects. The last remark received wholehearted support from the gecko sprawled over the calendar.